So quite often in relationships, I think what often happens is that we blame others. In this case, I'm talking about black men. We blame black men, and we like to say that we are not together anymore. This relationship ended because this person, this black man, was so toxic. And I have been guilty of this, right? This black man, this person was so unhealthy. And that is why I am not with him anymore. That is why the relationship ended. But the reality, if we really want to examine the truth and what really happened, is that we as black women are as equally unhealthy and toxic, if not more, myself included. So when I look back over my past relationships, what's interesting is that it's so easy to point out what someone else wasn't doing, you know, how I felt about this person who behaved in a way that I didn't like, you know, person doing something that I didn't want them to do, not listening to me, not, you know, valuing me, and all that in my experience might be true, but the reality is that I was voluntarily in those relationships. I in some ways probably enabled the behavior. I did not leave, you know, and we're talking about relationships that went on for years. So the real question is not about black men or men being toxic. It is about examining what toxicity is in us that would allow us to tolerate the things that we do. Now, I want to talk a little bit about a word that many of you have said is overused, or some of you have said that. And I agree it's an overused word, but I can't think of another word to say other than trauma. Let's talk about trauma. With toxicity, when we say that a person is toxic, when we say that a person is unhealthy, or exhibiting unhealthy behaviors, exhibiting toxic behaviors, a lot of times whatever they're doing goes back to some type of trauma that perhaps they have had, and now they are, you know, acting out in a way that is not good. And it's, again, easy to look at the person who is cheating or lying or, you know, manipulating, you know, those types of things. It's easy to look at that person and say, oh, this person is toxic, and as a result, our relationship is or was toxic. But I think the person that people rarely look at is that, because by the way, we all have trauma, all of us, you know, and I'm going to get on divesting in a minute here and all that, and swirling and all that. Not swirling, I'm going to get on divesting. But we all have trauma. And so even the person who is saying that, yeah, I was in a toxic relationship and it ended because of that person was just so unhealthy, you have to ask that person, why were they even there? Why were they there? And what you'll often find is that that person who's saying that, you know, the relationship ended or needs to end because it's so toxic, those are the same people who find it very hard to end said relationship. Those are the people who are enabling the relationship, who are afraid of leaving the relationship, who perhaps think that they can't do better than that particular relationship. And those people are as equally toxic and equally as unhealthy, if not more, than the person who is, quote, acting out and exhibiting bad behavior. Now, why am I saying this? I'm saying this because these are, you know, for those of you who don't know, the way my content works is that I believe art imitates life. Art mirrors life. Many of my videos actually mirror things that I'm learning in my own life, perhaps things that I'm going through. we hopefully should be all working through our trauma. That is just part of life. That is just part of life. And whether it's daddy issues, whether, it's abandonment, it's, fear of being abandoned, it could be anger, it could be, insecurities, whatever it is, whatever behaviors or feelings your trauma has caused within you. Those things, hopefully, you are working on, you are trying to understand, you are, addressing. That is the hope. That is the goal. And real quick, I hope you enjoy the view here. It's a little bit intentional. And it is cold, so I have my hood on here. I mean, it's not cold, but it's not like the warmest day, but the view is beautiful, and I'm getting a little sun too. So, but the question is, when people say that relationships take work, relationships are so much work. I've been married for 15, 20 years, and all the work that I've put in, when people say those types of things, what work are they talking about? And can we get a little bit more specific here? So this is why I'm making this video. I'm trying to unpack that. In terms of a relationship, it's not about finding someone who has no trauma. That you'll never find some person. I don't think you'll ever find anybody with zero trauma. I think it is about finding someone who is aware of their trauma, who wants to understand their trauma, who wants to work on their trauma, who wants to admit that they even have trauma. And I think in terms of, if you're in a relationship and your trauma is perhaps clashing with the other person's trauma in some way, one of the best things you can do is acknowledge that it is really no toxic person. It is just that you both have trauma, and both traumas can lead to toxicity. It can lead to an unhealthy relationship. However, if both people are doing their best to manage their trauma, then there is hope on the other side of that. There is hope. But both people have to be willing. Everyone is dealing with trauma. Then is the solution to not get in a relationship? No. Should I just be single? Because everybody has trauma. So why am I gonna get in a relationship and deal with someone else's trauma? Well, you should probably understand that one of the benefits, in my opinion, to being in a relationship, one of the potential benefits is that when you're in a relationship, assuming it is one that both people are open with each other, your trauma will be exposed. Your trauma will be exposed. The other person's trauma will be exposed. And what it gives is an opportunity for both of you to not only see and acknowledge each other's trauma, which is not easy, and this is where I'm getting to the work that nobody, all this invisible work that people keep saying that nobody ever describes. This is what I'm trying to do, is unpack that. You are going to confront the other person's trauma. And you might be trying to avoid it. You might be trying to not trigger any trauma or anything, but it will happen. If you go deep enough into any relationship, if you've been with someone really with not, if you're really with the person, then you will experience, you will see that side of them. And the question, the overarching question is, now that I've seen this trauma, do I stay and help this person deal with it, or try to deal with it with them, or just kind of guide it? Like, do I stay, work on my trauma, and maybe somehow help them with their trauma, or should I leave? Should I leave this, quote, toxic relationship? Should I leave this, quote, unhealthy relationship? And I think your answer to that is depends on if the person is worth it. It may not be the answer that you want to hear, but is the person worth it? Because like I said, we all have trauma. So you're not going to leave one relationship and go to another that, oh, there's no trauma over here. Oh, there's no toxicity. There's no unhealthy behaviors. No. You're going to still, and that's why they say the grass is not greener on the other side. Because yes, you might not have to deal with that specific trauma or that specific toxicity, but then there's going to be something else. So how do you know if you should stay and deal or if you should leave? And the conclusion I'm coming to is to ask the question is the person worth it to you? Is it worth it? And I think to unpack the is it worth it is question number one. Are they aware of their trauma? Are they aware that their trauma is translating over to some toxicity? Are they trying to understand their trauma? Are they trying to work on and heal from their trauma, right? These are all things that can potentially determine if it's worth it for you to stick it out with said person. For some people, it's not worth it. When I look back on many of my, when I look back on relationships in the past, it was not worth it because those people may have been in denial about having any trauma, or perhaps in denial about their trauma leading to some toxic behaviors and some unhealthy behaviors. So the best thing you can do the best thing we all can do is to acknowledge that we have trauma and to acknowledge how that trauma informs and impacts our lives. I'm using trauma. You guys may think it's being a little bit too extreme, but like I said, we all have had things that have affected us, and now the work as adults is to figure out how those things that happen to us, how is that impacting us now, and how is it impacting us in relationships with other people. And okay, now that I'm in this relationship where I want to be, because I'm not, I can't just get rid of the trauma, but let me try to at least slowly, and it may take a lifetime. Healing could take a lifetime. Let me at least get on this path to trying to heal and become better. And both people are doing this. I think often the people who are sort of called out, there's some people who, theirs is more loud. Like if you're a liar or a cheater or a manipulator or you're a narcissist or something like that, that's very obvious. And so it's easy to say, oh, that person is toxic, or that person is making my relationship or our relationship toxic, right? But the people who kind of go unnoticed are the people who have fear and the people who have shame and insecurities and like they're afraid of being abandoned. And that is also, those people are toxic. That is not, if you have all this fear, whether it's, like I said, fear of somebody's going to leave you and you can't do any better and all that stuff, that's not good. That's not necessarily good, but there's a reason why you feel like that. And again, it may take a lifetime for you to heal that, and maybe you'll never heal that, but it's something to be aware of and to work on. Yeah. So again, I'm making love and relationship content and beauty and body content about Black women, and I'm going back and forth. Some of you subscribed for both of those things, some of you only subscribe for one of those things, but I hope this video is helpful. Again, when people say relationships are a lot of work, this is what they're not saying. This is what they rarely ever break it down in this way. But this is a lot of work. I just realized this, and I am not a spring chicken. Not a spring chicken, and these are things that I'm just realizing. So comment below. Let me know what you think about this. Like, share, and subscribe. Click the links in the description box and get to know my business, Curated Legacy LLC, and my coaching and consulting service. Join the Black and Invisible YouTube membership group. Purchase my book about being an invisible Black woman on Amazon. If you feel compelled, please donate to my Cash App, as well as via Super Thanks right here on YouTube. And as always, stay tuned for more